The first leap. In the year 2029, humanity stood on the edge of a new frontier. Commander Alara Miles gazed through the reinforced glass of the Johnson Space Center's strategy room. Beyond the conference table sat a model of the moon, surrounded by projection screens filled with orbital trajectories, fuel calculations, and terraforming simulations. The room buzzed with quiet intensity. Her mission, codenamed Prometheus, was the keystone in NASA's decade-long interplanetary strategy. If successful, it would lay the foundation for the permanent expansion of humanity beyond Earth. 30 nations, Ilara murmured, scanning the digital roster of flags and mission partners. 2 space agencies, 5 corporate contractors. One chance. Dr. Kaito Asher, her mission strategist, stood beside her, flipping through an augmented schematic of the Artemis Next class lander. We launch in 7 months. First to the Lunar Gateway, then the descent to Shackleton Crater. If the ice survey confirms our projections, we break ground on Haven Base within 90 days. And if it doesn't? Alara asked. Then we lose a decade. Prometheus was not just another lunar mission. It was the proving ground for every system required to reach Mars and beyond. The crew would test modular habitats, deploy autonomous robotic miners, and activate the first off-world nuclear power reactor. Every move was guided by NASA's new roadmap: reach the moon, build infrastructure, test long-term habitation, and then leap. Behind this plan was a vision not written in stone, but etched across decades of ambition. NASA's strategy wasn't just about sending astronauts into space. It was about evolving space into a domain of human permanence. Low Earth orbit had become routine. The moon would become sustainable. Mars? That would be transformational. Alara knew the stakes. The Earth was showing signs of strain. Political alliances trembled. Climate instability worsened. The Prometheus mission was more than science, it was legacy insurance. At Mission Command, holographic simulations displayed human colonies on Mars, AI-managed farms on the moon, and orbital shipyards circling Europa. The dream was real, but the path to it was treacherous, riddled with technical risk, political fragility, and deep unknowns. I read the 2025 strategic framework again last night, Ilara said. The parts about civilizational resilience. It doesn't feel like theory anymore. Kaito nodded. It's survival. Space isn't our playground. It's our insurance policy. Later that evening, as Alara walked alone past the mission archive, she paused by a glass case. Inside sat a blueprint mold from Apollo 11, now almost a century old. Below it, engraved in polished titanium, were the words, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." But now, the step wasn't small. And it wasn't for mankind alone. It was for the future of all life tethered to Earth's gravity. Alara placed her hand against the glass, eyes steady. "We're not stepping," she whispered. "We're leaping." Moonfall. The blackness beyond the viewport was absolute, save for the crescent curve of Earth glowing in the distance. Commander Alara Miles floated in the command module of Prometheus 1, her fingers gliding across the touchscreen interface. Below her, the moon loomed larger by the hour. "Trajectory stable," announced Dr. Kaito Asher from the console behind her. "Lunar Gateway in 18 minutes. After a flawless launch and 3 days in transit, the crew had arrived at their second home, the Lunar Gateway, a modular orbital station circling the moon like a watchful sentinel. Built by an international coalition, Gateway served as a relay hub, research platform, and staging point for lunar descent. Docking was smooth. As Alara passed through the airlock into Gateway's habitat ring, she was greeted by the quiet hum of life support systems and the soft click of magnetic boots touching steel. "Welcome to the edge of forever," joked Lieutenant Maeve Ortiz, their EVA specialist, already securing her toolkit for surface operations. The next day, the real challenge began: Haven Base. The target site was Shackleton Crater, a jagged scar on the moon's south pole, where shadows never lifted and water ice lay hidden in the regolith. A robotic lander had already confirmed the presence of ice deposits 2 months prior. Now it was time to build. Alara's team descended aboard the Aegis lander, carrying modular components for the first habitat. With the hiss of retro thrusters and a cloud of lunar dust, they touched down. The moon's silence was deafening, but inside their suits, a flurry of activity erupted. Robotic assistants, pre-deployed by cargo drones, began unpacking the payload. Inflatable habitat modules slowly unfolded like petals. Solar panels unfurled. The team's task was not merely exploration, it was construction. Within days, the first module of Haven Base stood secured to the lunar surface. "This isn't just a camp," said Maeve during a transmission to Earth. "This is humanity's first true footprint beyond Earth." The infrastructure was revolutionary. A nuclear fission power system, developed under Project Kilopower, provided continuous energy in the eternal polar darkness. A regolith processing unit began refining local materials into construction bricks. Water ice was extracted, filtered, and stored. The Artemis team was building not from imports, but from the moon itself. Inside Haven's pressurized core, Alara took her first breath of lunar air. It tasted filtered and dry, but it was their own. She tapped the walls gently. "We built this," she whispered. NASA's new lunar plan wasn't about flags and footprints. It was about sustainability. Every system installed at Haven Base was meant to be expanded, upgraded, and replicated. A greenhouse module was under construction. Soil tests were already underway. And the upcoming Ares rover, a massive mobile lab, would soon begin mapping underground ice veins for future expansion. As weeks turned into months, Haven Base grew into a small settlement. International crews rotated through Gateway and down to the surface. A second outpost was planned on the crater rim, designed to house more specialized research labs. Private contractors began cargo deliveries. Lunar supply chains were forming. But with growth came tension. Political factions back on Earth debated the implications of resource rights. A communication relay went down during a solar storm, stranding the Haven crew with only local systems for 6 tense hours. And a regolith dust leak, barely contained, reminded everyone just how hostile this world remained. Still, Alara remained resolute. Every challenge they overcame solidified their presence. One evening, after 47 days on the surface, she stood at the crater's edge, looking out over the shadowed interior. In her hand was a small sensor probe, encoded with a personal message to her daughter, Aria, back on Earth. "This is where it begins," she recorded softly. "This dust, this rock, it's the soil of our second Earth. One day you might walk here, not as a visitor, but as a resident." She threw the probe gently into the shadows, where it blinked twice and disappeared. That night, Alara added one final line to the mission log. "Prometheus has landed. Haven Base is alive. The moon is no longer distant, it is part of us now." Red horizon. 3 years had passed since the first airlock door had hissed open on Haven Base. Now Earth was a little quieter, and the moon a little more familiar. The lunar gateway had grown, expanded with new modules and robotic docks. Haven Base had become semi-permanent, with 6 rotating crew modules, its own water refinery, and a self-growing hydroponic system. Humanity had taken root on another world. But for Commander Alara Miles, the next challenge loomed across millions of kilometers of deep space, Mars. She stood inside the glassy, domed training facility at NASA's Johnson Space Center, the simulated Martian landscape stretching out in copper-toned ridges. Wind machines stirred fine red dust into the air as she tested her new suit, sleek, jointed, and lined with anti-radiation mesh. The HUD projected wind speeds, terrain gradient, and biological vitals onto her visor. "This won't even come close to the real thing," muttered Maeve Ortiz, now promoted to mission specialist for Mars systems. "But at least you can pretend it's cold." Alara smiled. "I'm not pretending. It's terrifying already." Mission Dauntless was NASA's first interplanetary crew journey, scheduled to launch in 2037. The plan had been crafted for decades, a 2-year round trip, with 18 months on the Martian surface and a 6-month journey each way. Every component had to be perfect, life support, propulsion, landing systems, surface habitat, energy modules, and the psychological resilience of the crew. For now, Alara was leading Phase 0, the test build. In a joint operation between NASA ESA and the ISRU Coalition, in situ resource utilization, a Mars surface simulation zone had been established in the Arizona desert. There, prototypes of the Arcus habitat, a 3D printed dome made of regolith composite, were under trial. These domes were designed to withstand Mars dust storms, provide radiation shielding, and support modular expansion. Kaito Asher had taken a new position as lead systems coordinator on the Mars mission. He walked alongside Alara through the desert mock-up, pausing beside a sample MOXIE unit, designed to extract oxygen from Martian carbon dioxide. "Every molecule of air we breathe on Mars will be engineered," he said. "No mistakes. And every drop of water recycled," Alara added. "No waste." They both understood that the mission wasn't just a journey to another world. It was a blueprint for planetary survival, to prove humanity could adapt, endure, and build on a world where nothing was given. As the years raced toward launch, technology accelerated. Nuclear thermal propulsion systems matured, reducing travel time to Mars. Smart AI assistants, built into every helmet and habitat system, allowed for constant monitoring, diagnostics, and real-time health support. A new generation of cryogenic fuel depots, orbiting between Earth and Mars, enabled flexible refueling during the journey. By 2035, the Mars Transfer Vehicle Resolute was complete, a cycler-class transport equipped with rotating artificial gravity rings, radiation-hardened sleeping quarters, and dual fusion-assisted engines. It could carry 6 crew, 20 tons of cargo, and enough supplies to support long-duration deep space operations. Alara and her team were selected as the primary crew. Her daughter, Aria, now 16, sat in the front row during the mission announcement, tears in her eyes. "You're going farther than anyone ever has," she whispered. "I'll bring back red sand in a bottle," Alara replied, hugging her tightly. "And maybe the seeds of a new world." Launch day approached. The mission was not without opposition. Critics questioned the risks, the cost, the ethics of leaving Earth behind when so much remained unresolved. But NASA remained firm. The Earth was still home, but the future required options. The final weeks were a blur of rehearsals, final calibrations, and farewells. Alara received a sealed letter from the president, open only when you pass Mars orbit. In her private log, she wrote a message to future generations. "This is an escape. This is exploration. We carry Earth in our bones, but Mars is where we learn who we might become." On launch day, the world held its breath. Resolute lifted off from a Cape Canaveral launch tower under clear skies, flames billowing, and hearts pounding across the globe. Within hours, it joined the transfer orbit, slinging past the moon toward the great red dot in the sky. And then deep silence. Inside the ship, Alara stared out from the viewport, watching Earth shrink behind her. Mars lay ahead. A new frontier. A new dawn. She whispered to herself the words she'd said once before. "We're not stepping, we're leaping." The long silence, the silence of deep space, was unlike anything Alara had ever known. Out here, there were no winds, no tides, no up or down. Just the endless black, scattered with ancient light. Resolute was alone now, weeks beyond the moon's orbit, its nuclear propulsion systems humming faintly behind reinforced bulkheads. The journey to Mars was just under 6 months, and for the 6-person crew aboard the Resolute, it had already begun to test every limit of human endurance. Inside the ship, a delicate balance of life support systems worked in perfect harmony. Oxygen scrubbers, converting carbon dioxide into breathable air, water reclamation systems, recycling every drop of moisture, hydroponic gardens producing microgreens and vitamin-rich lettuce under artificial sunlight. The crew relied on Clive, the central life support and virtual environment AI, for everything from sleep monitoring to mood stabilization. "Alara, your circadian sync is off by 1.3 hours, Clive reported one morning, as she floated through the gravity ring. "I recommend a red spectrum light session and a protein shake." "Skip the shake," she muttered, yawning. "Double the light." Make it sunrise. Panels in the ring brightened with a warm glow, simulated sunlight washing over her face. It helped. A little. The ship's rotating habitat module, designed to simulate gravity at 0.38 g, matching Mars, had been a triumph of engineering. Exercise stations, sleep pods, even a small greenhouse created a sense of rhythm. But even with gravity and breathable air, there was no escaping the reality. They were months from home, with nowhere to go but forward. Lieutenant Maeve Ortiz spent her days maintaining the hydroponics lab and managing the waste-to-nutrient system, which converted human and plant waste into usable biocompounds. It was, as she often joked, the most glamorous job in space. Dr. Nickel Rao, their onboard physician, monitored crew health obsessively, conducting bone density scans, radiation exposure checks, and cognitive tests. He knew the risks. In deep space, cosmic radiation was a constant threat, mutagenic, silent, and invisible. The ship's radiation shielding, enhanced with polyethylene and water tanks, was state-of-the-art. But it could only do so much. "We're not made for this," he told Alara during one of their quiet talks. "No matter how advanced our systems get, we're still Earth creatures. Our biology remembers gravity, air pressure, blue skies." "Maybe," she replied, "but our minds are already writing new rules." That night, Alara read a chapter from Darwin's Origin of Species, a tradition she'd started aboard Haven Base. She paused at the line, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most adaptable to change." She looked around at the humming systems, keeping them alive. The spinning ring, the artificial breeze from air vents, the gentle flicker of LED plant lights. All human-made, all defying nature. The most adaptable. That was their mission. Still, despite the design brilliance, there were cracks, small ones that widened over time. Maeve grew irritable, snapping during routine tasks. Dr. Rao developed headaches from disrupted sleep cycles. Even Alara felt the weight of the silence creeping in. Every hour was monitored, every motion logged. No privacy, no weather, just systems, schedules,